the achievements that I would like to say is, look, sugar is not an easy ministry to look after. It has its own innings. There has been a lot of negativity about the sugar industry. There has been a lot of talks that the sugar industry is there to die. It will not sustain and become a industry any longer that Fiji may look forward to. But may I say that now sugar industry is there to stay. Sugar industry is the only industry in the South Pacific Islands, in Fiji as we know. So we have to maintain the sugar industry to give Fiji the viability and the strength of the economy apart from the tourism industry. So the sugar industry once was the backbone of the Fiji economy. However, the industry is getting less attractive to the farmers due to the number of issues such as expiring land leases and change in trend, whereby the sugarcane farming is no longer a generational crop. Therefore, the ministry's focus is to instill confidence among our sugarcane farmers in the sugar industry and to retain grow the number of potential farmers in the near future. To achieve this, the ministry is introducing initiatives and programs to make the industry attractive and profitable to the farmers and to increase the sugarcane production yields. In this process, the ministry has planned to actively diversify the industry to generate additional revenue streams, ultimately benefiting the farmers and also to attract young farmers. In order to achieve the goal, the cane production should be increased. Now, when I say it should be increased, currently we are hovering around 1.6 million tons of cane. In the previous good years of the government during Garas's time and Ratumara's time, we used to get a production of 4.2 million tons of cane. It came down to 3.2 million tons in 2006 before the takeover by Bainimarama government. Today, because of the neglect in the sugar industry, the sugar cane farming production has reduced to 1.6 million tons. We actually have to increase the tonnage. If we have to bring the prosperity and the profitability into this industry, our minimum tonnage should be no less than 3.5 million tons of cane in the coming years. So all in all, our industry has to revitalize, promote, and bring back farmers and young farmers on the land so that we can bring this tonnage back. Before we can even think of any other projects coming in the sugar industry. Now let me elaborate a bit more on that. We were currently looking at other countries where they produce up to 5 million tons of cane. There are countries like Mauritius, they do up to 4 million tons of cane. Eswatini does 5 million tons of cane. We should do 3.5 million tons. We have the land, we have the potential. So my ministry's coming year, come 2024, is to entice, promote, and bring people on the farm so that we can increase the production. So coming back to that, in order to achieve this goal, the cane production should be increased. To assist farmers to increase production, the coalition government has introduced various programs for farmers during the financial year, which are the new farmers and the lease premium assistance. Now this is something is totally different from any other government that has ever done. We will assist any farmer who wants to come on the farm, and if they have got a approval letter from TLTB or Lands Department that there is a new lease letter given to them to come on the farm, we will provide them 30% of the premium that has been charged by TLTB or the Lands Department or 7,500 to support the new farmers. And number two, after a long neglect, the farmers' complaints were generally, when I used to travel around the country, is that the drainage system have been neglected. There was a lot of waterlogging and flooding issues on the farms, and that destroys cane farming. So what we have done, we have put a lot of funding of $5 million towards the infill drainage program. And I think the farmers should take advantage of that. The manual labor, for that matter. When we know that there's a labor shortage. So what's happening is that the farmers are paying a lot of price to do manual harvesting. And on that basis, what we're doing is that we're giving additional $1 per ton to a farmer if he brings in laborers to do harvesting by manual labor. So that's some incentive that we have given of this year, but however, there's certain programs that I'm going to be elaborating later on the harvesting of cane on the hilly and terrain lands. Farmer incentive. What has been happening before is that the farmers used to draw money from the sugar industry pretending to grow cane, but at the end of the day, they did not deliver the amount of cane that they're supposed to deliver. So what we've done is, instead of giving them a handout straight away, we are giving it the other way around. If a farmer, for example, was delivering 100 tons of cane to the sugar industry or to the sugar mill, and then the next year that he increases his production by another 50 tons, so we are going to be giving him $5 ton extra on that additional cane that he's delivered to the mill. Now, this is something that was not there before, and we implemented that. What we're also going to be doing in the next year, we may also implement a incentive program, which I've just seen in Thailand, that if you produce cane, if you bring better cane, green cane, there could be some a form of lottery, whereby the farmers, the best farmer, he could be given a small tractor. A farmer could be given an implement. This is in terms of incentive. If we are willing to come up and increase their tonnage on the farm. So all in all, farmer incentive is $5 per ton extra, and and this will continue as long as we can do, so long as that we can bring the tonnage up to 3.5 million tons. Now, mechanization of farming. As you know that in the entire sugar industry through the world that we have been visiting, because the labor shortage is not an issue of only Fiji, it's throughout the world. So what has the sugar industry done around the world is that they have introduced mechanization of right from planting, fertilization, sorry, it's right from land preparation to planting of sugarcane, fertilization, harvesting, transportation, and all the way to the mills. So we actually using the similar formula or same formula that other mills are using throughout the world, and that's something that we are going to be implementing in the year 2024 onwards until we achieve our target. Now, sugarcane small grant scheme, as you know that a lot of farmers have issues with water and irrigation and implements. So we will be providing them water, irrigation, pumps, and also give them fencing materials to minimize damage of stray animals, damage done by stray animals. This is a big problem, and we've been told time and time again that whilst the farmers try to grow sugarcane, the wild animals come around and they tend to damage the crops. So we are giving them additional funding so that they can fence their farms and at least protect their crops. And there has been additional funding for planting of new sugarcane in various areas, and we actually will continue to give funding to the farmers that they can get about $4,000 per hectare, is it? And that's going to continue, provided this funding will be very, very strictly monitored. We don't want farmers to come and take money, and then at the end of the day, we see that there is no results. So they'll be in 3 stages. Initially, the farmers will be given a funding to plant sugarcane, which will be 1/3 of the dollar that we have allocated. And once we monitor that the sugarcane has grown to a level, this is probably the 4th or 5th week of the planting. Then the FSC will go and reassess. They'll then release the second 2/3, or basically 2/3 of the funding. And once the plant actually grows up to an acceptable level, and we see that the field husbandry is done properly, then they are released with 100%. So that's the program of the FSC at this stage. However, before I actually finish with the sugar industry side, we have been very extensively looking at some diversification of the sugar industry. We want to see seriously the ethanol plant to be set up in Fiji. We want to see a refinery to be set up in Fiji to produce refined sugar, or we call it white sugar. These things will only be achieved if we can achieve the production level of the sugar cane. So my first priority at this stage is, let's look at that and focus on that down the line. But our first priority would be to be seen that we increase the production of sugarcane from, as I said, from 1.6 million tons to 3.5 million tons in the coming years. And my priority is to see that we re-establish or rebuild the Reki sugar mill. On the other ministry portfolio that I look after is multi-ethnic, and the ministry is a newly established ministry under the coalition government. And currently we are in a process of establishing a policy, framework and strategic direction. The 2 consultants have been engaged through the assistance of the New Zealand government. One is Dr. Rajendra Prasad and one is Mr. Radhe Nand. These 2 gentlemen are fully sponsored, and firstly they actually have volunteered to work on these policy matters, which they are currently going through the consultation process amongst the people in Fiji and abroad and our diasporas. And number 2 is that because they have volunteered the services, we actually have sought assistance from the New Zealand government in terms of some funding for the travel and accommodation in Fiji. And I'm very pleased to announce that the High Commissioner of New Zealand, she has sanctioned 75,000 New Zealand dollars towards this cost. So it doesn't cost Fiji government or the Fiji taxpayers any single cent. However, to formulate this policy document, there has been a lot of consultations done. I believe there's about 50 to more than 50 meetings these 2 gentlemen have had over throughout the country. And there will be further consultation. Currently, I've been told as I speak, they have done a first draft report on this multi-ethnic policy document. They have tried to look at the comparative documents of Canada, Australia and New Zealand. And of course Fiji is no different to that. So once the policy document comes in place, they will then give us a document that I can take over to the cabinet, which will become a legal framework and a form of a bill that will be there forever, which means that no other government in place can either come and remove it just willy-nilly. There has to be reasons to remove that. But these documents, I'm pretty sure when Dr. Prasad and Mr. Nand presents to us, will be a document which will be a unique document. By the way, when they came to Fiji, Dr. Prasad and Mr. Nand, they had consultations with the Prime Minister, the cabinet ministers, the NGOs, the chiefs, and the community workers, the business community workers as well. So I think there's a very wide range of consultation they've done, and which I'm very pleased about, that they have spent a lot of time in this way. However, once, as I said, these documents are in place, they will come back and reconsult the community again, tell them what they have done, and then they'll do a fine-tuning on the document. If they've missed anything, or they've missed out on any consultation or suggestions, they'll want to include that. On the other side of the multi-ethnic affairs program, as you know, that the previous multi-ethnic and the previous administrations of Mr. Garase and them, they were focusing on small scholarships, small scholarship grants handed out to communities that were not benefiting from the Public Service Commission scholarships or Itoke scholarship grants. That was there. But however, as you know, that the coalition government does not or will not give scholarships under multi-ethnic, as we want to consolidate. All scholarships should come under Ministry for Education, so that there is a good accountability of what's happening. And as you know, that the TELS has been removed, so there has a new program been put in place. So we don't want confusion coming between us as to what I'm doing or what the Ministry for Education is doing. So we'll leave that scholarship program to them. And of course, as you know, that there were a lot of other cultural small. See, at the moment, multi-ethnic is not only to do with Indians. See, one has to understand, multi-ethnic is apart from Itoke, so all other communities in Fiji, for that matter. We are Chinese, Indians, Rotumans, Banabans, Tuvaluans, Cuans, Solomons, you name them. So this is the community that I have to look after. And currently, the population statistics shows us that the small minority community in Fiji is around 32%. 68% is in Itoke. So this is still a sizable number of community that this multi-ethnic has to look after. And that's where our focus is, to see that we assist and assist these smaller communities in whichever way possible. And as you know, that the last budget, we only had an allocation of $1 million for the administration and running of the ministry. However, now that the policy framework has been done, the Minister for Finance, Honorable Bimban Prasad, has assured me that the budget for multi-ethnic will increase, whereby then we can assist all the multi-ethnic smaller communities throughout Fiji in whichever way possible. But on the first year of our multi-ethnic program, we were given, as I said, $1 million, of which what we are doing is we're putting 2 crematoriums, gas-fired crematoriums, which comes under the multi-ethnic portfolio. So the first gas-fired crematorium we are putting in Tuatua Cemetery in Lambasa, and which will be, the foundation should be laid in the first or second week of January. And the project should complete by no later than June of this year, which is at a cost of $250,000. And the second crematorium, a gas-fired crematorium, we are putting up in Lautoka, and this will be again a project done by the government of the day, and that takes care of the 2 big major projects that we will achieve in the coming 6 months. And of course, then we have got other programs throughout the country that we will make sure that we move out and deliver. And so multi-ethnic, apart from this crematorium, as I said, one of the issues that I have actually been talked about and that people have faced is there's a lot of these minority communities who are sitting or basically staying on land which are not secured. They don't have a security on the land. is like other than a Skoda settlement or there are in land which doesn't have a proper title. And of course, this community doesn't have money to seek a proper title and have a proper document in hand to say, look, this is my property. So we will be looking at those projects where we can identify these groups. Either we give them a community piece of land on which they can all stay together, and we give them a proper title, or we give them individual titles. So this is something I'm currently talking to the Minister for Lands, Honorable Philomena Biswaromo, because I've been told there's a community in Levuka. They are basically, they have a piece of land, but there is not secured. We need to secure that land and give them a proper title. And of course, there's some land towards Lemi, where this a lot of South Solomon Island people are staying. They don't have a proper title. I will be looking at their plights and make sure that we solve that issues in the coming 2024. Just to touch back on the sugar industry, as you know, the labor shortage is an issue in throughout the world. It's a global issue. However, we need to bring in mechanization, as I said. And one of the things that the sugar farmers have been complaining about is sugar harvesting on the hilly terrains. And we don't have laborers enough to harvest on the hilly terrain. So we are currently looking at some machines out of France and other parts of the world that can do harvesting on the hilly terrains, and we are very positive about that. That come next year, we'll be trying to bring in these small harvesters. As you know, the bigger harvesters do harvest on the flat land, and that problem is solved. But the hilly terrain is an issue. So we are currently looking at small harvesters which has tracks, and hopefully we can, because if those machines are very well utilized in these other parts of the world, I'm pretty sure we can bring them in here and at least assist the farmers in that area. And in terms of sugar prices, this is something very interesting. Whilst our sugar production in Fiji dropped, however, because of the current sugar price that we are getting out of UK, gave a good price. So the sugarcane farmers actually, as you know, the last 2022 payment, we managed to give farmers $91.38, which is the highest price in the history of the sugar industry in Fiji. And this is without the assistance of any government subsidy or any government top-up. So with the industry that we are looking at again, I'm not giving any price, any figures yet, but I'm going to assure the farmers that the next payment of 2023 crop will be much higher than 91.38. So they should look forward to a better price. And come before my term ends, I'm pretty sure that we could hit as much as $100 a ton. That's something I'm looking at the trend. But this is where I'm saying the farmers have to work hard. The more sugar we produce, the more sugar we'll sell, and based on this master award where there's a 70-30 payment formula, the farmers will get more if we sell more sugar. As you know, that we actually have inherited a lot of problems from the previous government, and it's not easy to re-oil the machinery and reinvent the whole thing. So I, as a minister with my own experience as a businessman and as a farmer myself, I actually understand the problem of the farmers. So that's something that is an advantage to the current sugarcane farmers. So they don't really have to explain to me the A to Z problem. Number two is that we know that farmers have issues. We are trying to resolve them. I've put my team in place. I've got my permanent secretary and my other office staffs to go on the field and go and talk to the farmers, assist them out. Don't let them run around. Let's be proactive than be reactive about it. And I know that 1 year it took us time to understand. It took us time to get to the bottom of the problem, what's happening. Come next year, we are all focused to make sure whatever the problem the farmers are facing, we try to go and resolve them as soon as possible, so they don't get basically disturbed or discouraged from farming. And that's why I focus at this point in time. And as I said, because the Penang mill had closed, and a lot of our farmers were discouraged. They actually started leaving the farms. And they said, look, if the mill is not there, why should we plant cane? There's a lot of idle land, which is lying in Penang and Tawwa side. A lot of our Itoke brothers and families have actually asked me that if government can assist or sugar industry can assist. Yes, we will. As I said, there's about 13 different programs under which we will assist the farmers. So our focus is very complete and very there in a strong way that the Reki mill has to be done. We are currently talking to a company in Thailand who are in a big way. They do a lot of mills, and they've done a lot of mills throughout the world. We will be bringing them in to come and do a feasibility study again. As I said, there was a lot of feasibilities done, but we'd like to do a comprehensive one so that we do not waste our money on the mill. Unlike before, as you know, that there were some funding done by the Indian government on Exim Bank of India of 50 million US, that money went to a waste. So we will not try to rush into something and waste money. As you know, that I'm very strict in terms of spending. I want to see that where our money is spent well and is spent properly, so that the country can achieve its value out of that spending. So yes, the Ministry for Sugar is very focused. I urge the farmers to please just bear with us. If we have issues, there's a lot of our people on the ground. You can contact them and take assistance. And if they are not willing to assist, then they're more than happy to come to me as a minister, and I will take care of their problems, what they have on a day-to-day basis. Well, as I said, the priorities are very clear. We have, as I said, the sugar industry is priority number one, where that we have to achieve the targets of our sugarcane production. We don't actually, as you know, the climate change is a big factor. The rainfall pattern is also affecting the sugarcane farming growth. However, there are a lot of mitigations that we have, a lot of things that we can do. We can bring in irrigation system. We can bring in other sorts of programs that other countries are currently using. We also know there is a problem that we have in our sugar sector is all our farms are very acidic. They have a lot of pH, which thereby doesn't give the growth to the plant. So we actually are looking at some ways how we can assist. And one of the things that I am going to introduce is drones. Drones in Fiji, which will do fertilization, chemical fertilization of the sugarcane industry from the top, rather than us going into the farm. This is something new with technology we've seen in other parts of the world. So let's hope that in the next budget I can bring in about 6-7 drones, which are huge drones, which have actually liquid chemical and actually solid fertilizers that you can spray on the farms. And this will again become, will reduce labor intensively on the farms. So that's a program as far as the sugar industry is concerned. Multi-ethnic, as I said, we've got these major programs to assist the communities that are less fortunate. And look, as we go along, come 2024, we will see a lot of developments, a lot of things happening within the ministry, both of sugar and multi-ethnic. The biggest challenge that we are currently going through is the movement of labor. People are migrating or going under this PALM scheme and so forth. And graduates have moved out. And civil service has lost a lot of their valuable staffs who were experienced, who could perform. So if our biggest challenge now is to retain whoever we have. So government is trying to give them better salaries, better conditions to be around. But as I said, that look, it's not an easy task to get the mentality of the civil servants from the 16 years to the first year. We have to give them a bit of a different policy direction. We don't want to actually give them a feeling that we are trying to work them into a job. We want to be a worker-friendly. Government is worker-friendly environment. We want the workers to, if we are paying them well, we expect them to deliver the goods. At the end of the day, the delivery of the goods should go to the public at large, because we are there to serve the public. And before I finish, I say, look, it was a very challenging year. I have learned a lot of the issues the farmers were facing. I've tried to resolve a lot, but it doesn't stop there. We will make sure that we improve the services delivered to the farmers and the general public at large.